All right, strap yourselves in, folks, because this week we are diving deep into something pretty wild.
Oh, yeah.
The alleged 1979 alien war at Dulce Base.
This one is a classic in the world of conspiracy theories.
It really is, and it's
It captures the imagination, even
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
it's based on these claims that are really hard to verify.
totally. And to just kind of set the stage a little bit,
Yeah.
we're talking about Dulce Base, this supposed top-secret underground facility in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes that back in '79, things got a little intense, shall we say,
Yeah.
between the humans working there and some captive extraterrestrials.
Right.
It's like right out of a movie.
It really is.
Like-
It's like a sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, though, I think it's really important to be upfront with everybody here.
Yeah.
We are not here to say any of this is true.
Right.
Our sources for this deep dive are all based on conspiracy theories and what are called whistleblower accounts. That just means people claiming to have this inside knowledge, speaking out often about things that are supposedly being kept secret.
Right. So we're diving into the claims themselves. We're going to explore why this story is so captivating and look at how it fits into this bigger picture of government secrecy and possible alien contact.
Exactly. And I think it's worth noting that these accounts, even if we approach them with a healthy dose of skepticism,
Right.
often tap into some very real anxieties and fascinations that people have.
For sure. Okay, so let's start with the human side of this story, the alleged eyewitnesses.
Okay.
So we see names like Phil Schneider pop up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He claimed to be a geologist and engineer who helped build Dulce Base and came out later with all these details about what he allegedly saw there.
Right. Schneider's story is a perfect example of a compelling whistleblower account.
Yes.
He even claimed to have injuries from a confrontation with aliens at the base.
Wow.
And he gave these really detailed descriptions of what the base itself looked like.
I've seen the diagrams.
Yeah.
They're very detailed.
Oh, yeah. They're very elaborate. But
Yeah.
of course, memory can be unreliable.
No.
And let's be honest, there's always the possibility that somebody might embellish a story,
Right.
especially when there's a potential for profit.
Oh, totally. Book deals.
Yeah, deals, appearances, all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's not about dismissing these accounts outright.
Right. Yeah.
It's about looking at them with a critical eye.
Exactly.
I mean, people crave explanations,
Right.
especially when it comes to things that seem mysterious or unexplained.
Mm.
Do you think that's part of what makes conspiracy theories so appealing?
Absolutely.
That idea that someone has the secret knowledge
Yeah, that somebody knows.
that the rest of us don't.
Yes, and they're in the know and we're not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay, so then we get to the alleged government involvement in all of this.
right.
And this is where things get really interesting, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, we're talking about supposed alliances between agencies like the CIA and the NSA working in secret with extraterrestrials.
It's like a mix of a spy thriller and an alien invasion movie.
Right. It's all rolled into one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's fascinating here is not just the idea of collaboration,
Right.
but the alleged motives behind it.
Exactly.
Like, why would the government be involved with aliens in the first place?
Right. Why would they?
Some theories say they're after advanced technology, running experiments, or even trying to gain control over society using alien knowledge.
Yeah, using this advanced knowledge
Oh.
that they've gleaned from these extraterrestrial beings.
That's intense. So they're not just coming for our resources or
Yeah.
to conquer us,
Right.
but they're trying to manipulate our...
They're trying to manipulate and control us in a much more insidious way.
Right. And it's important to remember that we don't have concrete proof of any of this.
Of course not.
But let's for a moment imagine that a cover-up is in place.
Okay.
How would something like that even work?
That's a great question. And I think we can look to real-world historical examples of government secrecy to get some clues.
Okay.
I mean, think about the Manhattan Project,
Right.
which developed the atomic bomb, or the various covert operations during the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Those show us how information can be controlled,
Right.
compartmentalized, and kept from the public eye.
It's true. So even if we don't have evidence of alien involvement,
Yeah.
those real-world examples of secrecy give us a framework for thinking about how something like that could potentially happen.
Exactly. And it helps us engage with these claims in a more analytical way.
Right.
It's not about blindly believing or dismissing, but asking those critical questions.
Okay, so let's dive into the heart of the Dulce Base story,
Okay.
the alleged war itself.
Right.
Now, the accounts differ on whether it was a small skirmish or an all-out battle.
Right.
But either way, it creates this incredibly dramatic picture in your mind.
It does. And what strikes me is how these accounts regardless of their truth, tap into some very specific anxieties of that time period.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You know, the Cold War was at its peak.
Right.
There is this constant fear of nuclear annihilation and a general distrust of government.
Like 80s.
Yeah, like right out of those movies that were made during that time. So a story about a secret war with beings from another planet, it kind of fits right into that climate of fear and uncertainty.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like those real-world anxieties were projected onto this narrative of an extraterrestrial conflict.
Exactly. And it's not just about fear either.
Oh, okay.
There's also this element of fascination with advanced technology.
Okay.
Remember, this was the era of the space race scientific breakthroughs and a growing belief in the potential of science to solve our problems.
Yeah.
So the idea that the government might be hiding alien technology, that's both terrifying and incredibly alluring.
Oh, totally, because it's like the ultimate forbidden knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, something that could change the world as we know it, and it's being kept from us.
Right. And who's keeping it from us?
The government.
The people that we're supposed to trust.
Right.
So you can see how those themes of fear, mistrust, fascination with the unknown,
Yeah.
they're all woven into the fabric of the Dulce Base story.
That's so interesting. It's like the story itself becomes a reflection of the times.
Yes.
A way for people to grapple with these complex emotions and anxieties that were swirling around them.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to look at these stories not just as isolated incidents, but as products of their historical and cultural context.
Yeah, you can't separate it.
You can't.
That time.
Okay, yeah.
It's all part of it.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's keep going. Talk about the aftermath of this whole thing.
All right,
all this stuff that allegedly happened.
Yeah. And of course, we can't forget about the aftermath of this alleged war.
Right.
All the stories of this massive cover-up, base damage, and witnesses being silenced.
Right. It really feeds into that classic conspiracy theory idea that somebody is trying to keep the truth hidden.
But here's what I've always wondered.
Yeah.
If there was such a huge event, this battle between humans and aliens,
Right.
wouldn't be more concrete evidence?
Well, that's an excellent question.
It's like, how do you erase all traces of something like that?
And it highlights a really interesting aspect of conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Sometimes the lack of proof actually makes the story more compelling.
Oh, really?
Think about it.
Okay.
When there's no definitive answer,
Right.
when the evidence is scarce or ambiguous,
Yeah.
it allows our minds to fill in the blanks.
Okay.
We start speculating, imagining the worst-case scenarios, and it just fuels the mystery even more.
Oh, so it's like the absence of evidence almost becomes evidence itself.
Exactly.
At least in the minds of people who are drawn to these theories.
It does, and that ties into this broader phenomenon we see with conspiracy theories in general.
Okay.
The more elusive the truth seems,
Right.
the more some people become convinced that something is being hidden from them.
Yeah.
It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of suspicion and distrust.
It's amazing how our brains work, isn't it?
It is.
We're always searching for patterns for explanations.
We are.
Even when those explanations might be more about our own anxieties than about actual facts.
It's true, and that's why critical thinking is so important.
Yes.
Especially now when we're bombarded with information from all sides.
Right.
We need to be able to evaluate information, consider different perspectives, and be willing to question our own biases.
100%. Okay, so let's bring this back to Dulce Base.
Okay.
How does this alleged incident, whether it's true or not, fit into that bigger picture of conspiracy theories about the government hiding alien contact and technology?
Well, Dulce Base becomes a symbol,
Okay.
a kind of focal point for those broader beliefs.
Yeah.
It's held up as proof that aliens are not only real, but that they've been interacting with us for decades.
Right.
And that the government has been desperately trying to keep it all under wraps.
It's like the ultimate they're not telling us everything scenario, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of distrust.
Yeah.
That feeling that something is being hidden, that's a powerful motivator.
Right.
For a lot of people who believe in these theories,
Yeah.
they feel like they're being lied to.
Right.
That the truth is out there somewhere,
Yeah.
and they're determined to uncover it.
I can understand that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We all want to understand the world around us.
Yes.
And sometimes the official explanations, the ones we're given by authorities,
Right.
just don't feel satisfying.
They don't. And when there's a void of information,
Right.
it's natural for speculation and imagination to rush in and fill that void.
Totally.
Hmm.
But the key is to approach these theories with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Always.
Right. Ask questions, look for evidence, and be open to the possibility that you might not have all the answers. So for our listeners,
Yeah.
What's the takeaway here?
Okay.
Why should they care about a story that might just be a bunch of fabricated nonsense?
Yeah. Because even if the events at Dulce Base didn't happen exactly as described,
Okay.
the story itself tells us something about ourselves,
Okay.
about our deepest fears and desires.
Mm-hmm.
It reflects our fascination with the unknown,
Right.
our fear of powerful forces controlling our lives,
Yeah.
and our yearning for answers to some of life's biggest mysteries.
It's a reminder that we're all drawn to stories,
Yes,
to narratives that help us make sense of the world around us.
we are.
And sometimes those stories, even the ones that seem far-fetched,
Right.
can reveal deeper truths about who we are and what we believe.
And speaking of narratives,
Yes.
the Dulce Base story also highlights the power of narrative tropes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of what you mean?
Sure. So in the Dulce Base narrative, we have these classic tropes
Okay.
of humans versus aliens,
Right.
the underdog fighting against a more powerful force,
Yeah.
and the struggle for survival. These themes resonate with us because they tap into something primal, something deeply rooted in our collective unconscious.
So even if the specific events at Dulce Base didn't happen,
Yeah.
the way the story is structured,
Right.
the way it uses these familiar tropes,
Yeah.
makes it inherently compelling and relatable,
Exactly.
regardless of its truth.
It plays into our innate understanding of conflict drama and the struggle between good and evil, even if those concepts are being projected onto a narrative that might be entirely fabricated.
That's fascinating. It's like the story itself becomes a kind of mirror,
Yes,
reflecting back our own anxieties, hopes, and fears, whether we realize it or not.
precisely. And that's why it's so important to be aware of these narrative structures,
Okay.
to understand how they influence our perceptions and shape our beliefs, even when we're dealing with something as seemingly outlandish as alien encounters.
That's a really good point. It's like we need to develop a kind of narrative literacy
Yes, we do.
to navigate the world of information,
Yeah.
especially in this age of myth-information and conspiracy theories.
I couldn't agree more. We need to be able to deconstruct these narratives,
Yeah.
to see them for what they are, and to understand how they're being used to manipulate our emotions and beliefs.
Okay, so then getting back to the actual claims of the Dulce Base incident,
Right.
is there anything in the aftermath, in the alleged cover-up, that actually lends credibility to the story?
Well, that's where things get tricky.
Okay.
Proponents of the Dulce Base theory
Right.
point to things like supposed damage to the surrounding area,
Uh-huh.
rumors of a heightened military presence,
Okay.
and the mysterious deaths or disappearances of some of the alleged witnesses.
Wow.
They claim these are all signs of a cover-up.
I can see how that would be compelling, especially for people who are already predisposed to believe in these kinds of conspiracies.
Sure.
But wouldn't there be a more widespread impact if something like this actually happened?
That's a very fair point.
Wouldn't we see more evidence, more people coming forward with their own stories?
And skeptics argue that the alleged evidence is often circumstantial, based on hearsay,
Right.
or easily debunked.
Okay.
They point out that there's no hard proof, no smoking gun, that definitively proves that the events at Dulce Base ever took place.
So it's like a classic case of extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Right.
And in this case, the evidence just doesn't seem to be there.
Exactly. But remember what we talked about earlier?
Okay.
The lack of evidence can sometimes fuel the belief even more.
Right.
It creates a vacuum that's quickly filled with speculation, conjecture, and imagination.
It's like that saying, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Right.
But at some point, don't we have to draw a line and say, okay, without some concrete proof, we can't just accept this as truth?
Absolutely, and that's where critical thinking comes in.
Right.
We can't just blindly accept what we're told,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to claims that are extraordinary or challenge our understanding of the world.
So how do we reconcile those two seemingly conflicting ideas?
Yeah.
The allure of the unknown and the need for critical thinking. How do we stay open-minded without falling into the trap of believing everything we hear?
Right. It's a tough one.
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It feels like a tightrope walk sometimes.
It is.
Wanting to explore these fascinating possibilities,
Yeah.
but also needing to stay grounded in reality.
Yeah, it is a delicate balance, but I think it comes down to curiosity.
Okay.
With a healthy dose of skepticism,
Yeah.
we should absolutely be open to exploring the unknown, asking what-if questions.
Right.
But we also need to be rigorous in our evaluation of information.
It's like being a detective, right?
Yes.
Following the clues, looking for evidence,
Mm-hmm.
but always being aware that things might not be what they seem.
Exactly. And sometimes the most interesting discoveries come from those moments where we have to re-examine our assumptions
Oh,
and
yeah.
consider alternative explanations.
So let's do that now.
Okay.
We've gone deep into the Dulce Base story,
We have?
looked at the claims, the alleged evidence, and the cultural context. What's the verdict? Is there anything here that suggests something really did happen, or is it all just smoke and mirrors?
Well, as with most things in the world of conspiracy theories, there's no easy answer.
Right.
I think it's safe to say that there's no definitive proof that the events at Dulce Base unfolded as described in these accounts.
Okay.
The evidence is largely circumstantial based on anecdotal reports
Right.
and often contradicted by official statements and scientific consensus.
So for someone like me who tends to be pretty skeptical, it's probably best to file this one under interesting but unproven.
I think that's a fair assessment, but here's the thing.
Okay.
Even if we conclude that the Dulce Base story is likely a fabrication,
Okay.
a product of overactive imaginations and Cold War paranoia,
Right.
it still has value.
Okay.
It gives us a glimpse into the human psyche, our anxieties, our hopes,
Right.
and our enduring fascination with the unknown.
It's like a cultural artifact,
It is.
a reflection of a particular time and place.
Yes.
And the fears and aspirations of the people who lived through it.
Exactly. And it reminds us that stories, even the ones that might not be true,
Right.
can have a profound impact on our beliefs, our perceptions, and ultimately our understanding of the world.
So for our listeners who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by all this talk of aliens, conspiracies, and government cover-ups, what's the key takeaway? How do we navigate this world of information where it's becoming increasingly difficult to separate fact from fiction?
Well, as we've been saying throughout this deep dive, critical thinking is paramount.
Yes.
It's about asking questions, looking for evidence, and being willing to change our minds when presented with new information.
And maybe being a little bit playful with it too, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
okay to have fun with these stories, to let our imaginations run wild,
Sure.
as long as we don't lose sight of the importance of critical thinking and evidence-based reasoning.
Absolutely. Curiosity and skepticism are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
In fact, they're the perfect partners for exploring the mysteries of the universe.
Yeah.
Whether those mysteries involve aliens, government conspiracies, or something else entirely.
So to wrap things up, I think it's safe to say that while the Dulce Base story might not be true in a literal sense,
Yeah.
it still holds a lot of truth about who we are as humans.
I couldn't agree more. It reflects our desire for meaning, our fascination with the unknown, and our enduring search for truth, even if that truth sometimes takes us down some pretty strange and unexpected paths.
Well said. So to our listeners, keep those minds sharp, those imaginations active, and most importantly, keep diving deep into the fascinating world around us. Until next time.